fast life, and now we switching gears and where we gone. We looking good now. Trips to Italy, shows in Moscow.
What's going on, y'all? It's your boy DameSmiff, and we're gonna basically be going over the music trap today. And we don't mean the typical hip-hop trap, you know, you guys doing crime and things like that. We mean like the actual like career trap. So if you're interested in conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe button so that way you can catch all my latest streams, all my latest videos, and this will tell other people that it's really cool and they can check it out too. But essentially, what we will be kind of like taking an overview look at and getting my reaction to is about 3 different videos, and a few of them will be discussing how the industries are being changed by AI. Now, for a lot of people, when they talk about AI, for me at least, the conversation always sticks around like jobs and what's going to happen with my job and my tasks and how well I do my job and stuff like that, right? But I think the key thing that musicians need to understand is that your job as a musician is not attached to your musical skill as much as you would like it to be. Now, some people were kind of like mentioning this in my last video, talking about how people are complaining about the lack of authenticity in their music. But I challenge you to look at people's spending power. Okay, so when you are thinking about people's tweets online, or like your grandma talking about how she misses, you know, the 70s, whatever, that is just a sentiment. But when we look at an industry, the thing that's really going to move the needle is where you put your money. So if you notice that a lot of the artists that are successful don't play instruments, don't write music, and also are possibly not talented to be a successful musician by itself, then that goes to prove to me, at least, that the desire for authentic, high quality, elite level music is not obsolete, but rare. It means a lot of you really don't care how well this person sings. You don't really care how many instruments this person plays or how well they play them. You don't really care about their understanding of the instrument, because when I have certain conversations between an average listener and, let's say, like an actual professional gigging musician, right? The gigging musician is going to have like this kind of in-depth understanding of everything that they're talking about, right? Almost kind of like a mechanic to a vehicle, right? They know the vehicle down to damn near the parts that it takes to make it, so much so that you can disassemble the vehicle and they can still put it back together, right? But then if you were to talk to a music fan, a listener, a lover of a top artist or whatever, their understanding of what they think is the music industry literally stops at the aesthetic of a musician. So when you get into tonality, when you want to get into like dance, you're thinking about certain moves, choreographies, and counts and things like that. It's very rare you're going to get the average person understanding what they're talking about without having some kind of prior knowledge from either someone who's been in the industry, their own experience in the industry, or getting a kind of hands-on experience with the industry. So we have to know that, and we have to admit that in order to understand how everyone is experiencing music. Okay, so when people are experiencing music, let's say like on the street and things like that, like when you just go to the grocery store, the person at the cash register, 9 times out of 10, their favorite playlist is in their phone. Like they don't have a collection of CDs. They didn't buy all the merch. They're not going to the next concert on their tour. 9 times out of 10, their connection to their favorite artist and their favorite music comes from their cell phone or an algorithm telling them that it's dope. So now that we've gotten to this point, how do you manage this as a musician who's going to be faced with this new AI shift? And what it's going to look like is essentially, because you know most people, not all, but most people do not value your musical skill, but they value, let's say, your influence, your social media real estate, or anything of that nature, to where you can kind of always be in people's face for easy marketing and things like that. If you understand that and you realize, okay, AI is coming around the corner, then that should help you understand how people are going to be consuming the very thing they want from you even more. Well, if you think about, let's say, like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you had to go to an actual show to hear a guitar player who practiced and rehearsed their music top to bottom, because there was no cell phone or like backing track to help you out then. And so they had to actually know and confirm and validate their talents right in front of you, live before your eyes. And if you walked away, you had no proof. There was no song, no record, or anything like that, right? Until came along the actual vinyl records, right? Vinyl records were cool until the technology limitations started to hinder a lot of different musicians. So if you wanted to record a big band, that was very, very expensive. If you were a musician who wasn't on time, or you took a lot of more time to really perform your songs in the studio, that was expensive. So when that created a wall for many musicians, that means that the music you got available to you as a just generic ass listener, like you don't think about anything musical, the music you get your hands on in the 50s, 60s, and 70s is highly invested in. Like, more than likely, this person, if it's not just one person, a team of people have dedicated a high amount of time and money to get you this song or record or this performance to your town or your city, right? Fast forward to when the CD comes out. Now, companies have realized, especially the tech companies, realize that they can mass produce data on a little circular disc of plastic. Before it was a cassette tape, but a little circular disc of plastic. They can put that data on there and sell it to you, to where you can just keep repeating your favorite songs over and over and over again. That's just music. The CD was originally just built for storage in general, but what it did for music is it made the average listener get access to elite music with a reasonable, at the time, price. So you could pay $10, $8, $7, probably $2 if you go into like an actual concert, getting the little CD from the stand at the concert. But you could basically get high quality, mixed, mastered, probably, top of the studio, top state of the art studio recordings in the palm of your hand for $10. Right? Before, you needed a record player, and then you had to get the vinyl and then understand how vinyl works and all that other stuff. Now you can just punch it in your car. It'll pull up the track list. There's multiple discs, CD players in cars at the time and things like that. So the technology just kept going faster and faster. But for the musician at the time, that meant that if you wanted to create a record, it got a little bit easier, not just for you, but everybody else who didn't need to be as talented, everybody who didn't need to be as consistent in terms of their business acumen. Because what we noticed was that record companies weren't necessarily trying to keep up with the trends. They started to reiterate. You had the Now series. You remember that series where it was like every 10, 3, 4, 5 years they'd have like a big compilation of all the hit songs? That's a way for them to use CD storage to reproduce top songs we know you like. Now, what that all that really is a nutshell, if you just look at it as a business perspective, is we're taking Coca-Cola and we're just putting a new label on the bottle. We know you like Coca-Cola, but we kind of just need to, freshen some things up. Like if you look at the bottle of Coca-Cola today to what it originally was, there's that, and the recipe barely changed. So now that we're looking at, okay, how can we monetize the technology we have for music against the lifestyle and the consumerism that many people demand from our musicians, record companies and tech companies have just been trying to run that bag up. And a part of running that bag up is your decisions. So when you're thinking about going from CDs further into the future, somebody said MP3s. You have MP3s, and that was a big thing. And it was a huge problem because when you had to buy a CD, it had to be published, right? Meaning we had to create it and ship it from like basically reputable sources like disc makers or something like that, right? But if you didn't do that and you were just pressing them in your house, it lowered the cost, but it also reduced the professional look of your album. So it was kind of like, hey, you should get it done professionally for the sake of the market, right? So now if we're looking at MP3s and things like that, these little files that people could just quickly send before their computers, you don't even have to touch them, you don't have to see them, they're just points of data, ones and zeros, all that's they are. It starts to make things even easier for people to cheapen music and to basically lower the quality of everything that you would call a, I don't know, a bombshell track, a hit and things like that. So like Michael Jackson's Thriller was probably stolen way more than it's worth today when the MP3 came out. Your favorite Lil Wayne song has probably gotten stolen as an MP3 way more than he could ever recoup, right? So that's an issue in the consumer side of things, because the only reason you would, send a file to your friend is because it's easy to do. It's not because it feels wrong or bad. You just want to share music, right? And so a lot of companies were getting closed or investigated and shut down for this kind of behavior because it wasn't necessarily helping the industry. Like you were capitalizing off of a company's original idea, but you had almost no hand in the creation of the original idea. You're just exploiting it. And also the person who created it didn't know you were exploiting it. So when you were like 11 years old, sending LimeWire files, yeah, Napster was getting in trouble for the same thing, but you not thinking it's a problem is why we have to kill a Napster, right? So now fast forward even further, we have Fruity Loops, we have Logic Pro, we have Sibelius, we got Reason, we have all these different softwares and things like that musicians from middle school all the way up to a collegiate level to even like Bruno Mars, Beyonce, and Warner Music Group are using these programs, right? And these programs allow for the creation of music to be about as simple as an MP3 file. So now I can, even in this room right here, in this small little studio I have here, I can create an orchestral piece. And we've seen it done like on YouTube. There would be like some nerdy little kid with like emo hair just standing in front of a computer with a voiceover talking about how he's making a beat today, and he makes the beat and it sounds like big and grandiose and epic and things like that. But if you were to peel back a layer and look at what he's actually doing, he's doing what's called musical engineering. He's engineering sounds, data, formulations, and systems in order for you to hear something that he wants you to hear, like his art or his idea or maybe a movie score and things like that. All that really does, and the reason I'm going down this path is to highlight that your skill of understanding music theory, hitting scales on your instrument, long tones, the circle of fifths, that's elementary for what's coming down the line for your career as an individual. So if the people who believe that being a good guitar player and being able to sing while playing guitar and lasting for a 60-minute set were the pinnacle of musicianship, then the person who says that people appreciate musicality, they would be rewarded as such. But in reality, when you walk outside and you go downtown, you can just talk to people and they know how to play instruments. Some of them can sing. Some of them have gigs this week. But what they're actually doing with their day has very little to do with their musical skill because it's elementary. You being good at your instrument is like knowing how to drive, but you knowing how to win a race takes a lot more than knowing how to drive. So that's the part that I think many musicians need to understand, and they need to get a quick understanding of this while they're in school. And if you're a musician that's not in school, let's say you're in high school and your parents just handed you a piano and you're like, I don't really know what to do with this, but let's say you're good at it. Or if you're an older person and you're already out of school and you want to pick up an instrument or you want to learn to sing or learn to dance and things like that. These are things you have to understand on a macro level. On a micro level, yeah, get your skills down and understand your scales and the history of what you're doing and things like that, and all the cultural cool stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you can't facilitate most of your products as a musician and entertainer without the collaboration of tech companies, without the collaboration of government facilities and things like that. So if you're not going to participate in, let's say, this new AI wave, then the kid who's like 8 years old who can push a button on a 4/4 count is going to create something cooler than you because the AI is going to help him do it. Versus you trying to understand, orchestral scores and making sure you understand, all the etudes and studies and things like that. Like it doesn't matter to the greater public, which is going to get you into the industry and making you money. So moving forward, we're going to react to the first video, and this is going to be more of a reaction to the greater conversation around these mergers that are happening with all these different companies here. I'm gonna try to get it up really quickly, but the key thing you want to understand is that tech companies don't care about music industry. They care about the music industry for what it's valued for. So like all these people who have cell phones, like you have a cell phone right now. The idea that these tech companies are trying to give you like an amazing cell phone experience is not true. They're collecting data because the data is information for them to create more products that they know that you want to buy. Your individual life is not important to them. So this video is to help you understand that and then lead you to start making better decisions so that way your individual life is important to you. Okay? Because if you start relying on things like, oh, the royalty rate is going to just increase one day. Well, it doesn't increase one day without advocacy, which means someone going out and demanding change. Well, who's going to do it? Well, if you think will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas or Beyonce are going to do it, that's called hope, and you're not really going to get it done. What you have to do is actually do it yourself, or do it with the collaboration of people with like minds and make sure you guys are on the same page. Because again, you will find yourself talking, at least I have, talking to musicians who have been in these industries for a long time and haven't done much different in terms of making an impact on themselves or making an impact for others. And that's okay if you are aware of it. But the idea that you're going to be a musician and then complain about not being paid enough, complain about the state of fans, or complain that Ticketmaster is a monopoly and you're going to do all this stuff and not actually take action, I think you're a waste of time. Like you're just, chilling. You're just doing things because you feel like it. So we're going to get into this first video, and it's Bloomberg's Roma Bostic, and she's highlighting that the market is currently driven less by fundamentals and more by headline news. And I'm going to basically show you how like the industry, much like the music industry, is going to be affected by just general sentiment, like just common phenomena, right? And the problem that most people are going to have with this is that, okay, it's no longer cool to listen to disco. But then when we start playing disco and people want to start making disco music, you have to now tell these people, well, the bigger thing you need to focus on is not disco. And they have to stop and they have to make a new thing that's going to fit with the trend. And then when they don't want to do that, they get left behind. So we're going to look at this and then see how headlines are really going to affect an industry and not necessarily your sentiment, like I was saying, about musical skills and musical talent. So let's get into it.
On that inflation side.
President Hammack, the last minutes to the Fed meeting said that some believe that a rate hike could be appropriate if inflation were to remain above target levels. Were you among those people who believe a rate hike could be appropriate?
My baseline is that we're going to be on hold for some time, but I do think that there's risk that we might need to be either more accommodative or more restrictive in policy. I think it's just too early to say. We've had a series of these supply shocks over the past couple of years. We were on a good path. At the end of 2024, when we first began reducing rates, inflation had come from above 7 to below 3, and we had good line of sight to getting back to that 2% objective. Then, of course, we had the tariff shocks, and more recently, the conflict in Iran. All of these successive supply shocks are hard to think about how we're supposed to handle those from a monetary policy perspective. Normally, you like to look through these types of supply shocks, but when it's coming on the back of already elevated inflation, it may not be the same as it would be had we be entering this period at low and stable inflation.
So from my understanding, in a nutshell, in an easy little musician's perspective, I think what she's explaining is that if you're trying to invest in the market for your country, which is the United States in this example, in order for you to really project or predict things that's going to happen with your money, a lot of people will look at past events. So like if there's a depression, or if a company goes bankrupt, or if they change CEOs, or if, I don't know, something goes wrong in the manufacturing process, so they have to make a huge, change to their chain. These little, well, big moments in the market help you kind of understand what's going to happen with your money. So let's say you have like $1 kajillion in Tesla, just to pick a random number. You got $1 kajillion in there. And then Elon Musk, he goes on stage and just does something like really ridiculous. Like he does a backflip, breaks his neck, and then just laughs it off. And everybody's like, what the fuck was that? Whatever he does, right? Let's say most people don't like what they just saw and start, I guess you could say, boycotting Tesla. They're like, I hate CEOs that backflip and can't do it, right? So because he failed his little backflip and people don't like it, they start reducing their consumerism behavior with Tesla, meaning they're not going to buy it no more. You might see content creators making funny little memes or like denouncing the company or whatever. And all this stuff really has nothing to do with what the company actually does, right? But it affects the company in terms of influence and branding and marketing. And so what people who are investing their money in will do is they'll look at these moments and these, big changes. And I'm using a silly example, but they'll use these moments and figure out, okay, should I put more money into this, predicting more money in the future, or should I pull what I have in this company out, expecting to lose money based on what I'm seeing? And what she's saying in this video is that because recently we've had so many big shocks to the market, it's really difficult to kind of make these predictions at this current point because the market has just been dealing with so many different things all at once.
A central theme of those who have suggested the Fed could and should cut interest rates now is their belief that the labor market will not be a source of inflation. How much confidence do you have that the labor market will not be the one where wages go up and push overall inflation higher?
I don't think right now that the labor market is a source of inflationary pressure. That's not what I'm hearing. I do hear that there are some risks and there are pockets, particularly out in the 4th district, the Cleveland district. What I hear particularly from manufacturers or from construction companies is that they have a hard time finding workers. It's hard to get people to come and show up, to be there repeatedly. What I'm focused on the inflation side is that we make sure that we're maintaining inflation expectations. We've talked a lot in the recent past about how the labor market, when unemployment increases, it can increase quite quickly. And so you want to get ahead of that. That's also true on inflation expectations. Right now, inflation expectations look to be reasonably well contained, but it's important that they stay that way. And that gives us time to be patient and to make sure that we can deliver on both sides of the mandate.
And I think that's a great point that she's making, that like she's actually talking to the manufacturers, right? Because if you go on TikTok and social media and stuff like that, you'll see a lot of people who are more than likely an employee, more than likely a manager or a supervisor and things like that. These people getting laid off and things like that. When you see these conversations happen online, and she's saying the manufacturers and the actual owners and employers are saying it's hard to find people to hire, there's either a disconnect between the people who have jobs and are getting laid off and the people who are looking for jobs and the people who are unemployed. That's at least what that tells me. So that means that whatever reason you would not apply to a job makes it harder for the employer to get people into the position. And then for whatever reason, you're leaving your job, whether it's a layoff or a quiet quit, which is a thing a lot of people are doing, it makes it harder for the employer to basically fulfill their job. And so when we're thinking about inflation and things like that, she's saying that because it's more so less people willing to work for whatever reason, the cost it takes to fulfill services and make products and things like that becomes higher. So what this looks like, in my opinion, is a cultural issue. We have more people that are willing to not work, at least work specific jobs, and forego payment and income and then suffer through the higher prices. Because the idea that you're not going to work a job that nobody wants to do and then get the service and benefits of those jobs that nobody wants to do is not really going to make sense in the long run, especially if everybody's going to do it, right? So she's highlighting something very interesting, but that really has a lot of parallels to the music industry. you'll see many musicians, they'll pick up a genre, drop a genre, or they'll pick up an instrument and drop an instrument and things like that. But if it doesn't benefit them on an individual level, they'll usually stop. Now, that's fine in the, micro level of things. Like maybe you're just not interested in music and things like that. But there are certain situations where you have to think about, like, okay, if you want to make a CD today, and from my understanding is many people believe that dropping an album is like a big moment nowadays. So if you wanted to release a CD today, how much do you think it's worth, and how do you think you're going to get your worth? Because the idea that you're going to just sit in your room, studio, meet with your band, and then record a track, upload it to Instagram, upload it to YouTube, get it on Spotify, get it on Apple Music, even do some shows, is going to compete with this AI bubble that's about to explode. I think you're about 30 years behind the curve, because record labels are not looking for musicians anymore. And if you don't believe me, we're going to react to a video very, very soon where we'll understand what that actually means. And I'll explain from my understanding, what it is. So where you have a Suno, OpenSea, a Gemini, a Meta, and a ChatGPT, right? These are systems that allow you to enter prompts, and then it'll pump out whatever it wants, right? So just like Suno from the music side of things, I can type in a prompt and say, play 50 Cent talking in Spanish, rapping over a reggaeton beat, right? Hit enter, and then Suno will try its best to generate what that song will look like, right? Now, the next thing you have to think about is, okay, if it's that simple to just make music there, I can make a little musician from the prompt and then just keep making music with that little musician, right? People have tried that. But what record labels have done, because they're a step ahead of you, is they figured out, well, instead of licensing out artists that you make and you possibly getting a prompt wrong, or you possibly not being able to, keep up with the demand of your fan base like a real human, we'll just license out the entire engine. We'll just take the whole thing and we'll just say, all right, if you want to use Suno, you just got to use Suno, and we'll implement all the data Suno will use, and anything you create, we will basically not own, but you don't own it either, because it's not your music, you're using AI. And I know that sounds like convoluted and confusing, but we'll break it down. And essentially, it's something that if many musicians don't understand, is going to be the same thing that the ringtone killed, is going to be the same thing that the CD killed, the same thing that the MP3 file killed, and you're not going to be able to keep up if you don't at least understand this. So let us see. So yeah, you can see kind of quickly, we're going to play it again, how they explained what's going to happen with this new AI system. And this is Adobe Firefly. Adobe Firefly is basically an all-in-one studio, right, as it says here. But it's essentially going to be able for you to just enter prompts and make damn near a movie right out of a prompt, right? And so I've played with a few of these systems, and they're very simple. Some of them are like, not as intuitive as they need to be. But the key thing you need to understand is what I was saying about being a skilled musician. You know how to play trumpet, you know your scales, you can hit the high notes, and you can play an entire, set with no problem, right? But do you know how to generate a prompt that's going to get you a music video that's going to basically compete with Lil Nas X's hit song? How are you going to do that, right? And if you don't know how that works, that's the key thing you need to understand to avoid the music trap, because the tech companies are giving everybody access to these tools, right? Tech companies like Adobe, ChatGPT, Suno, and all these people like that, they're giving people this access for a easy little price, like what, $20, $30 a month maybe, right? So now the idea of you booking a music video director, writing out the story, tracking it all out, getting the music and the songs written down, getting your background singers in check, publishing all of this, making sure all the splits are correct. This process has been sped up exponentially for you. Now you can act like people are gonna prefer real music videos, but if you haven't been on the internet in the past 2 months, people are running a bag up just making AI content, and it's not even good content. It's literally just more consistent than you. So there's people from all ages, young and old, who will just hit follow on a social media account that just shows talking fruit explaining how to keep the fruit fresh. There's people who follow social media accounts that produce AI content of talking fruit in romantic soap opera dramas. There's people who follow social media accounts that hit follow, and these accounts literally just generate AI skits, AI faces. They don't, some of them are just photos. They're just AI photos for free on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, or X, or these places, right? You're going to try to compete with that, with this song that's close to your heart, or the boy that broke up with you in high school, so you got to really sing with your soul, or you're sticking up for women and all of these little things you're doing. It doesn't matter, because the thing you're really competing against are the tech companies, not musicians, not the problems of the world you're trying to get a voice for and all that other stuff. Because I could type a prompt, get your little message out in a video from somebody who looks better than you, stronger than you, and looks richer and cooler than you, and then the prompt is done in about 3 minutes, and we can get the same thing done. And so you've seen it done with the like I said, the talking fruit. You've seen it done with the fake AI people. They do it with the ads and the commercials. When this was first a growing thing online, a lot of companies would have you pay through Bitcoin so they couldn't track you, but people were basically developing the likenesses of celebrities, using them to sell products. So you would have somebody like Donald Trump trying to sell you a Trump t-shirt that he doesn't really sell. You would have things like Obama trying to sell you beard cream, and he doesn't even have a beard. So it would be really weird things that people would try to do because the access is here. The tech companies are just giving out the access because the tech companies make money from giving you the access to the tech. Your industry is affected by how this tech is used. And that's the key thing you need to understand. So I think it showed here a little later how the actual prompts work in the studio. So let's see here. I want to try and like slow it down a little bit so we can see what's going on. Can we go slower here? Let's do like 70. Yeah, new image editing innovations. Like this little thing could be like a card for grandma or something like that. Like most people are going to think, oh, it's just lighthearted little creations and stuff like that. Till you realize people who make cards for grandmas are running an Etsy store, pumping out cards left and right. There's been videos debunking a lot of those businesses where they realize, oh, this is not real products. This is not real content. Hit expand, and then the AI system literally will just think and hallucinate whatever is relevant for what's going on here. So this right here, this could be an album cover. This could be behind the scenes exclusive Patreon artwork for a singer or something. This is all kinds of things that you probably aren't thinking about because you're worried about scales. You're worried about long tones on the trumpet and things like that. Generative fill. So now it's literally going to just mark the hair and then change it. And you can do this with real people. You can do this with animations like they're doing here. Grok was recently under scrutiny, I think in early January or early February, for releasing what's called a spicy mode. And spicy mode basically lets you make, spicy versions of photos and things like that. The issue was it had very, very, very light, if any, guardrails on it, right? So people were just picking up people's kids, people's wives, your girlfriend, and then putting them in bikinis and provocative poses and predicaments, and then getting off on it, or selling it online, or publishing it, right? Now that's the creepy dark version. The lighter version of this is all the people who make DJ compilations on TikTok of songs that they don't write. So now you have like a 90s cookout compilation on TikTok where everybody's going to do their little dance, right? Everybody's going to do their little diddy bops, right? And everybody's going to do their thing. And the actual writers get nothing because the song's not actually on the TikTok platform because it was pulled by the record label, knowing that people were going to steal the music. So again, if you're not ready for this, you're probably playing trumpet for free on TikTok right now. you're probably releasing your music like just like, oh, I got some music I'm working on. Y'all want to hear it, and just playing it on Instagram and TikTok. I see it here. I see it with models. Models will take really, really nice photos, high produced photos, and then just post it on Instagram. And it's like there's that it's gone now. It's screenshot. If you didn't get it here, then you'll get it with people that were doing NFTs, non-fungible tokens. When they were doing that, people were just screenshotting the tokens. Like, I don't understand why you would think I would pay any amount of money for this token, right? Well, because the concept behind the token was misunderstood. The concept behind AI here could be misunderstood by you if you're a person who thinks that, oh, this little girl on this photo is just a little girl on a photo, and you don't think that this little girl could be you, possibly in a performance on stage as somebody's editing it out to make their own version of content without your consent. Now, people doing that in their own home, it's a philosophical thing that people are not really agreeing on. But I want you to realize that people don't do this in their home in general. People do this in their home, and then they'll make a social media page dedicated to the behavior. So, like I said, there's AI pages dedicated to just photos of just AI women, men, things, places, scenarios, scenery, rooms. There's AI pages dedicated to stories, skits, explanations, tutorials, all kinds of things. So you as a musician need to be ahead of this and understand that, okay, if this is going to be the big thing that we're going to focus on here, creation unmitigated, then what the value now has moved from is not the ability to create. It's now moved from the ability to create to the ability to be authentic. Meaning, if you could do this whole photo by hand in real time in front of people, you have a skill that nobody else could repeat. But if you can't, then 9 times out of 10, most people would just be like, yeah, just generate it with AI. Just quickly do it. I don't know, just think it, write it in a prompt, use your language, your vocabulary, your words, your ideas and thoughts just to get the AI to do it. But the authenticity now is going to be the fact that, bring it back to trumpet players. If you can play a trumpet in a specific style that no one can emulate, if you're going to be a trumpet that plays traditional German jazz, that can be emulated. If you're going to be a trumpet player that plays orchestral horror scores, that can be emulated. But if you literally try your best to whittle down everything down to the human level, you can almost never be replicated. And that's the thing tech companies are beating us in, is the ability to replicate. We try to do it with genres of music, but it doesn't really work here. Turn images into video. So this is clearly a fake car in a fake location. And now they can just make it drive, right? It can generate sound effects, generate music. You no longer need a Foley artist. You no longer need to understand how to be a Foley artist. You no longer need the experience of a Foley artist. Now you can take a photo, give it a prompt, and generate a storyboard for your entire video. Like this whole thing could, like me, I could be AI for all you want. Like I've seen channels like that on here where it's a talking head just kind of explaining a concept, and it's an AI voice. It will tell you it's AI. But like I've been saying from the beginning, most people don't care. They don't care. They are just happy to get the creation. And if you don't understand that as a musician, you will be left behind, like I keep trying to reiterate to you guys. So let's get into one last reaction. And this one is actually going to be a fun one because it's going to kind of explain a little bit more the AI in a kind of like a TikTok-y kind of way. I don't know how you would say that, but a weird little TikTok-y way. And then you get to kind of understand a bit more what it does. And like I said, this is just a huge exponential change for everybody involved. It's not nothing that will miss you. Okay, so if you're in the music industry, it will catch you. If you're not in the music industry, it will catch you. So don't think like, oh, I'm gonna just not do the, I'm just not gonna play the game. Nope, not gonna work. You're in it. Oh, let's see here.
UMG shifting from plaintiff to partner, and it could redefine how downloads for existing songs. Talk about a vibe shift. And UMG isn't stopping there. They're also teaming up with Stability AI to create pro-grade tools for artists and producers. Why does this matter? It's UMG shifting from plaintiff to partner, and it could redefine how major labels handle AI music.
So just so you're aware, and I'm gonna tell you because I'm the type of person to tell you, this is an AI voice talking. This is a channel with, it looks like 2,000 plus subscribers. So 2,000 people are subscribed to this content. This is an AI voice generated from a prompt of whoever. It could be a man, woman, black, white, yellow, green, or purple. And they're explaining something relevant to you about AI. And so if you I just wanted that just to be understood here.
Music. The next 2 years could change how fans create, how artists get paid, and how AI and music coexist. What do you think? Smart guardrails or a walled garden? Drop your thoughts below. Lawsuit with AI music app. Big news in the music world. Universal Music Group just settled its copyright lawsuit with AI music app Udio, and they're teaming up. Here's the scoop. UMG and Udio are launching a licensed AI music platform in 2026. Fans will finally be able to legally remix songs and generate tracks in artist-approved settles with rights cleared up front.
So that's the greater point here, is that UMG is actually teaming up with the tech companies, and they're gonna basically license out all of the opportunities within the AI model, so that way when they release it to the public for $9.99 a month, along with your music catalog subscriptions, you can now take those same songs and then make whatever versions you want legally, because they have owned every bit of data inside there that you're manipulating. This was a huge win for them, because now Universal Music Group and Warner Music Group, owning pretty much so much music that you love, they now can monetize the changes you make to the music you love, because they couldn't when you were on TikTok just screen recording or just, stealing, essentially. So that's the new move now. You want to have an AI engine that can help manipulate and change your music to the fans' liking, alongside a catalog that they enjoy, alongside your influence, alongside a personality and a lifestyle that they're inspired by. This is way bigger than understanding scales on the trumpet. It's way bigger than that. So this is Musician Talks with DameSmiff. If this was a dope conversation, make sure you hit the like button. It shows other people that this is dope. And if you subscribe, you will catch my latest videos. We got Eat Better Today coming up soon, where we'll talk about fitness and cool things like that, making sure we're healthy musicians, healthy people in general. And also, Musician Talks will be back here tomorrow. I will see you guys next time. I am out.